When your partner suddenly pulls away just as things are getting serious, do you actually know what they're trying to say? Yes, it feels like rejection. It stings. It makes you question everything you thought was going real well between you two. But behind that sudden distance, there's something deeper that most people in relationships completely miss. It's one of the most emotionally loaded things a partner can do. And if you misunderstand it, which most people do, you could be pushing away someone who actually loves you more than they know how to show. And by the way, if your partner used to be warm and open and then suddenly shifted into this cold, distant version of themselves, don't brush that off. We will get into what happens when this behavior suddenly reverses at the end of the video, and it's something most people wish they had understood before it was too late. Let's start with what pulling away really means. So why does your partner actually withdraw the moment you two start getting close? Most people assume it's simple. They lost interest. They found someone else. They're just not that into you. End of story. But here's the thing. If losing interest was all it was, they wouldn't keep coming back. They wouldn't have those random moments where they look at you like you're the only person in the room. They wouldn't reach for your hand when they think you're not paying attention. So why do they keep pulling away specifically when things start feeling real between you two? Because closeness doesn't feel safe to them. It feels like danger. In attachment theory, researchers like Amir Levine describe this as avoidant attachment. It's a pattern that forms early in life, usually in childhood, when a person learns that depending on someone emotionally leads to disappointment or pain. So their brain builds a wall, not out of cruelty, out of survival. The closer you get, the louder the alarm bells ring inside them. And they don't even realize they're doing it. To them, it just feels like they need space. To you, it feels like you're being shut out. Have you ever noticed a subtle shift in your partner right before they pull away? Maybe their texts get shorter. Maybe their eye contact fades. Maybe they start picking up their phone more when you're sitting right next to them. That's not random. It's protective. It's their nervous system activating what psychologists call deactivation strategies. Here's what most people in relationships don't realize. When your partner pulls away, they're not just creating physical distance. They're creating emotional distance because the intimacy you're building triggered something deep inside them. Something that says, if I let this person all the way in, they'll see the parts of me I can't even face myself. And that's terrifying. So they do the only thing their body knows how to do. They shut down. They go quiet. They become unreachable. Not because they don't care, but because caring this much is the one thing they were never taught how to handle. This is also why it always seems to happen at the worst possible time, right after a beautiful weekend together, right after they told you something vulnerable, right after you finally felt like things were moving forward. The closeness is the trigger, and the withdrawal is the only response they have. Ever wonder why this pattern shows up in some relationships and not others? Maybe it's the couple who stayed together for years but never really talked about anything that mattered. Maybe it's the partner who never raised their voice but one day just left without warning. Maybe it's the relationship that looked perfect to everyone on the outside but felt hollow and lonely on the inside. That pattern isn't random. It's deeply rooted in how we learn to love. John Gottman's research on couples found that relationships often fall into what he calls the pursuer-distancer dynamic. One partner reaches for connection, the other one backs away. And the more the first one reaches, the faster the second one retreats. It becomes a cycle that feeds itself. Watch how this plays out. If they go silent after a deep conversation, they're overwhelmed by the emotional exposure and retreating to feel safe again. If they suddenly get busy with work right when things are going well, they're using productivity as a shield against vulnerability. If they start a small argument out of nowhere after a tender moment, they're manufacturing distance because the closeness felt like too much. Each version looks different on the surface, but underneath, the message is the same. I don't know how to stay close without feeling like I'm going to lose myself. And hey, if this is making you see your relationship differently right now, hit that like button and subscribe. It's the best way to help us reach more people who actually care about understanding what's really happening in their relationships. Now let's go deeper. Because this behavior doesn't look the same in every person. Does your partner become suddenly critical, emotionally disappear, bury themselves in work, or start making big promises about the future? Each of these is telling you something completely different about what they need from you. Let's start with the sudden critic. This is the most common form. One day, everything is fine. The next day, they're picking apart how you load the dishwasher, how you said something at dinner, how you breathe too loud when you sleep. These aren't real complaints. They're manufactured reasons to create emotional distance. When closeness gets too intense, finding flaws in you gives them permission to pull back without having to admit the real reason. Now, the workaholic. This one is sneaky because it looks responsible. They're not ignoring you. They're just busy. They have deadlines, they have obligations. But notice the timing. It always ramps up right when the relationship starts feeling more intimate. Busyness becomes their emotional shield. They can avoid deep connection while still looking like a committed, hard-working person. No one questions someone who says they're swamped at work. What about the ghoster? This is the one that hurts the most. You have an incredible evening together. Real vulnerability, real laughter, real connection. And then silence. Hours become a day becomes 2. They vanish right after the moment that should have brought you closer. That disappearance isn't about you. It's about the emotional hangover they're experiencing from letting their guard down. The connection felt so good that it scared them. So they vanish until the intensity fades enough for them to come back and act like nothing happened. And then there's the future faker. That's the one most people never see coming. Because it doesn't look like a problem. It looks like love. They talk about moving in together. They mention trips 6 months from now. They casually bring up what your kids might look like someday. It sounds like commitment. But underneath, it means something else entirely. Talking about a beautiful future is their way of keeping you satisfied in the present without actually having to be emotionally available right now. The future becomes a distraction from the intimacy they can't give you today. And that's the most confusing version of all, because it feels like progress when it's actually another form of distance. Have you noticed something about yourself lately? Have you started walking on eggshells around your partner? Over-explaining yourself when you've done nothing wrong? Measuring your words carefully before you say them, editing yourself in real time so you don't accidentally trigger their withdrawal? That's not a coincidence. It's an emotional shift that the dynamic between you two created. Psychologists call it hypervigilance. It's what happens when your nervous system learns that connection is unpredictable. You stop relaxing into the relationship. You start monitoring, scanning, adjusting yourself to keep the peace. Researchers studying anxious attachment activation in couples found that the partner on the receiving end of emotional unavailability often reshapes their entire personality to accommodate the inconsistency. Think about that for a second. Your entire way of showing up in this relationship, the way you speak, the things you say and don't say, how much of yourself you reveal, has been quietly reshaped by a pattern you didn't even know was running. You've been changing who you are to make room for someone who keeps changing the rules. Ever had a week where something was weighing on you? Maybe stress from work, maybe a quiet doubt about where things were heading, and your partner's behavior shifted before you even said a single word about it. That's not a coincidence. They felt it before you spoke. Partners who have been together long enough develop an emotional radar for each other. They pick up on micro signals you don't even know you're sending. The slight pause before you respond to their text. The way your body tenses just a little when they sit next to you. The half-second delay in your laugh that tells them something is off. And here's where it gets even deeper. Their withdrawal might not just be about their own fear of closeness. It might be a direct response to a signal you sent without realizing it. Maybe you pulled back emotionally just a fraction, just enough for their radar to pick it up, and their system interpreted it as confirmation that closeness is dangerous. They're not just reacting to you. They're reacting to the version of you that you don't even know you're showing. and you're reacting to the version of them that they don't know they're showing either. Two people, both responding to invisible signals, both adjusting in ways neither one fully understands. Now, what does it mean when a partner who has been pulling away suddenly becomes perfectly attentive? This is what I mentioned earlier, and it's something everyone in a relationship needs to understand. If your partner has been emotionally distant for weeks or months and suddenly reverses, suddenly they're warm, present, affectionate, saying all the right things, don't just feel relieved. Pay attention. People in relationships are creatures of pattern. When they break one this significant, something real has shifted. Sometimes the reason is genuine emotional growth. They've processed something internally, maybe through reflection, maybe through fear of losing you, and they're ready to reconnect in a way that feels real and grounded. Other times, it's need-based. They want something from you. Forgiveness, reassurance, a fresh start. The warmth isn't about giving. It's about getting. And sometimes it's cyclical. A pattern of withdrawal and return that keeps both partners off balance. They pull away until you start to detach, and then they come back just enough to pull you in again. Not because they're calculating, but because their attachment system is wired to want closeness only when it feels like it might disappear. Esther Perel describes this as the push and pull of desire in relationships, where wanting and having exist in constant tension. The moment something feels secure, the desire fades. The moment it feels threatened, the longing rushes back. So what do you do with all of this? You understand it? That's the first step, and it might be the most important one. Because that pulling away, that silence, that sudden distance right when things were going so well, it was never just a habit. It was a conversation your partner was having with you in the only language they knew how to use. And now, you finally understand what they were saying.